This is me. This is my beloved wife, Sylvia. This is Sylvia's idea of sailing. This is my dream of sailing and my hope of circumnavigating the globe as a retirement project in 2029. This is Sylvia's reaction to that idea.
What? You got a quest?
I am on a 6-year quest to convince Sylvia that a circumnavigation is a wonderful adventure, but the clock is ticking, so join me as I search for the perfect yacht that Sylvia will love, and get all your ladies to subscribe and cheer Sylvia on in the comments. Welcome back to Naval Gazing at Camp David. This week we are back in France to have a look at a brand that elicits hushed tones of respect in the catamaran market. We're talking, of course, about Gunboat. I recently had the rare opportunity to hop on board the model that bridged the gap between Gunboat's previous ownership through its challenging times and out the other side into the powerhouse of design and luxury that it is today. I'm talking about the Gunboat 57, and specifically about the Gunboat 57, aptly named Hammer. Today, we are going to review its specifications, pricing, and layout against 3 similar new vessels. Do a full tour asking what would Sylvia say? Naval gaze at an innovation and or adjustment that might make life aboard just a little easier. Have a look at the used market for 3 to 5-year-old pre-owned comparables. And 5, give it a Dave score and compare the result with all the other previously reviewed yachts. All this fun will be sandwiched between a pairing of wine and a work of art from the same region as the guest yacht, in an effort to capture the culture and people who gave birth to these wonderful vessels. Waves, wine, art, and ideas. What a great way to spend 30 minutes. So let's get going. From high above Vancouver, we head east across the continent and the Atlantic to the northwest of France in the home of last week's monohull madness, the Beneteau 60. From here, we hop across to the shores of the Med and the yards of the legendary Gunboat in picturesque La Grande Motte. Finally, we head north and inland to an equally iconic wine region and the vineyards of the Brott family, who bring us our wine pairing this week, the wonderful Châteauneuf-du-Pape Red Le Filleul du Pape. Châteauneuf-du-Pape means Pope's New Castle and refers to a time when the seat of the Roman Catholic Church was in Avignon between 1309 and 1377. The region has written records of vineyards dating back to the 1100s, but winemaking has been there much longer than that. Châteauneuf-du-Pape was the very first French wine appellation created in 1936 and is known for its bold Grenache-based red blends. Officially, the region makes both red and white wines with up to 13 different grapes. Unofficially, there are 20 varieties used in the school in Marseille. Decided to set up his own company in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Maison Brot began to sell a wide range of Rhone Valley wines and became one of the pioneers in this activity. Charles' son, Jean-Pierre Brot, 3rd generation, took over the business in 1970 and developed the export markets. He was one of the first in the Rhone Valley to promote his wines across the Atlantic in Canada and the United States, as well as in Japan. Thanks to his hard work, their wines are now available in over 100 countries. Laurent Brot and his wife Christine took over the family business in 2001. Together, they improved the winemaking methods, developed the vineyards, and further enhanced the quality of the wines while building the reputation of the Brot name around the world. They represent the 4th generation of the family. In 2015, the arrival of the 5th generation came to the domain. Thibault and Benoit started working alongside their parents and are providing the company with fresh ideas and energy. Today, 3 generations are working together to develop the Brot business. Legend of the Filleul bottle dates back to 1952 and a meeting between Châteauneuf-du-Pape wine producer Brot and a renowned glass artist from the region. Together, they came up with a bottle with a twisted shape reminiscent of the old Grenache vines bent by the Mistral.
Oh, that is so good. You're going to enjoy this. Cheers. Let's go have a look at that boat.
fair warning, I've probably overdone it on the photos of this boat because honestly, it's just the most beautiful thing. It's art on the water. Look at the lines of this machine. Talk about purpose-built, focused, pinpoint. I mean, look at the entry on those hulls, the incredible thinness, the extent of the forward netting. The trampoline is absolutely huge, and the almost afterthought of the cabin or the salon here. But the effect is one of looking like it's going 150 miles an hour even when it's just sitting in these pictures. I mean, the speed that these things can do is just extraordinary. The first boat I saw when I visited Le Grand Mont at my first boat show was a 68-foot gunboat, glistening with its metallic teal paint sitting there. I think it had just been splashed, and I had never seen anything so beautiful in my entire life. This gunboat really doesn't disappoint, and I really was excited to get the opportunity to get on board a gunboat because it's pretty darn rare that that opportunity comes up. So thanks very much to Barry Haig and the folks at Collection Yachts for welcoming me on board this absolutely wonderful vessel, aptly named Hammer. I mean, once you get on board and you sit in that captain's chair, you know why this thing is called Hammer. Let's have a quick look at what we're going to compare this to, and trust me, that was a difficult choice because what do you compare a gunboat to? Well, this is Clash of the Titans today. We're looking at the Gunboat 57 compared to the ORC 57, Batman's catamaran, the Kinetic 54, and the HH 55. Just look at the upwind sail area on these. Of course, the gunboat takes the lead at 198 square meters. Not far behind, though, is the HH 55 at 192. That's followed by the ORC 57 at 191, and finally the Kinetic at 151. Hopping down onto the cabin top, you can see, there's no fanciness on these cabin tops. There's no lounges. There's nothing of that sort. There's none of that frivolity. We shan't have that. We'll be sailing this at breakneck speeds, flying hulls, and all that sort. So, loads of room for solar, but even there, you don't see an awful lot. Gunboat, on a lot of their stuff, especially the 68s and beyond, have an absolutely beautiful, they were the first to integrate solar into their roofline, where the solar panels are custom shaped to their architecture. You now see that on the Lagoon 51, on the FP 51. But it was Gunboat that actually got me looking at Solaban, who they use and who actually does those custom fittings and actually as well do custom colors and custom formats such as imitating a teak deck. You lose just a wee bit of efficiency, but it hides the solar panel. Anyways, looking here, you can see just how narrow this gunboat is. Look at the width of those hulls. They're absolute knitting needles. The ORC is striking in its absolute girth. The width of the boat, very similar architecture on the hulls and the trampoline, the extent of the trampoline. Then on the Kinetic 54, you can see a much more modest trampoline length and actual bow length on your two hulls. And that's mimicked with the HH 55. Now, of course, the latter two actually have space where I would want to live. The former two are hair on fire, let's giddy up and go. So now looking at the pricing, you can see that the ORC is the most modestly priced at 1.2 million euro. It's followed by the Gunboat at 1.8 million euro. Now, this is a guess. I don't know what the base price of the Gunboat 57 was back in 2018. Not to mention this boat went through the transition where the company had gone into receivership, the owner took over the build, etc., etc., etc. So wild guess here. Next up, you've got the Kinetic at 2.1, and finally the mighty HH55 at 2.58, 2.6 million. Heading down into the saloon. So you can see the Gunboat really doesn't have an enclosed saloon. I mean, it's wide open. Your galley's wide open. The saloon and the cockpit are one. Just some of it is under a cabin top. The back end is wide open. You'll see when we get into the video. It is an incredibly unique architecture. Your hulls provide the shelter and your berths and things of that nature. But when you're up top, there's not a lot keeping you away from the elements. Having said that, oh my Lord, they've got this captain's seat. It's like a trawler captain's seat on steroids, and it's smack dab in the middle of the boat at the front of the cabin, sitting in front of a mighty great wheel, looking out windows you can open up to see the base of your mast and access all your winches. You can do everything from this seat as you hang on for dear life while flying along at 20 knots. It is an absolutely extraordinary position. As we go over to the ORC, you have relatively luxurious setting for a boat of this nature. Again, you have proper indoor and outdoor cockpit and saloon in this one. I giggled when I looked at some of these. They actually have watertight doors that go down into the hulls if you want them. But the saloon itself, quite spacious. If not very minimalist. There are no Korean countertops. Your countertops are your fared glass and vinyl ester. There's good places to sit, and there's an area for a day bed. It is very, you can see every single through bolt onto the upper side. Of course, they're all nicely capped just so that you don't cut yourself on them. But there's no liners. There's one tiny little strip that goes down the center that houses some lights. But there's no frivolity on this boat. This boat is for going fast, and that's it. The Kinetic 54, absolutely gorgeous vessel. Massive space inside, massive headroom. I heard a rumor that it was almost by mistake. Apparently a Canadian was involved. I shan't tell you who told me that. But anyways, they have incredible headroom, and I think it looks good. They also have beautiful luxury inside. The finish is very nice, very much a boat that you can feel very comfortable living aboard. And then they have that wonderful walk through onto the foredeck, a beautiful forward cockpit that isn't only for control and managing your lines, but actually has beautiful seats where you could sit and have your coffee in the morning. They really have done a fabulous job. The back end of this has a very unique dinghy davit system with a drop-down wall that extends your aft deck space for socializing. So this is really quite a balanced approach to hair-on-fire performance. The HH55, again, what can you say? This is the epitome of luxury. You have multiple different species of glossed veneers, all on foam core, so they're still light. You've got beautiful floors in a teak and holly or variations thereof, stitched leather. I mean, it's the epitome of absolute luxury. And again, you have your indoor and your outdoor spaces on this. Looking at the weights, this is where it gets really, really interesting though. Your leader here is the ORC 57, and it's not a carbon fiber boat. This is 10.8 tons. The next closest is the Gunboat 57 at 13.6. Then you've got the HH55 at 14.2, and the Kinetic, which the latter two both are full carbon boats, at 14.9. Finally, diving down into the accommodations, so the berths. Gunboat 57, again, you've got a combination of berth and sort of galley area on this as well. On the owner's hull on the port side. The nice thing is they've gone with an athwartship berth, which does give you access on a vessel of this magnitude. You'll have a look at it when we get inside. But there's not a lot of space to spare, but they have done an awfully good job of in these areas creating a sense of luxury with some very nice veneers. They don't skimp. It's not the bare metal pure functionality of the ORC 57. This is definitely, your ORC 57 is your pure functionality, and the Gunboat 57 is somewhere between the HH 55 and the ORC 57. Probably not full halfway, maybe 30% there. The ORC 57, you have athwartship berths, but there's no walk around. It's just that the berth stretches hull to hull. Open and airy, as bright white fared fiberglass can be. But boy, you better be a purist, because everything just has a curtain over it, minimizing the doors. You can see every bolt head with a plastic cap on it through from the outside. The floors, the floor panels are light as a feather, but they are just a sort of nondescript black material. Everything, open shelves. I'm not big for open shelves. I'd like a door on every single shelf or storage area, but obviously that's more weight. So that's how you get to the 10-ton mark. Going over the kinetic, beautifully done. And in the owner's hull here, he's created an office-like environment at the aft, which can also then be converted into a berth if you need it. Full access around the berth. Full three-sided access in a catamaran of this nature. Please, others, take note on the recent survey I did. Out of the 4 luxury items, which included hydraulic dinghy lift, they included fly lounge, they included forward lounge and interior access, and then the last one was full three-side master berth access. The master berth access was given top marks as to what would get ladies on board. And remember, manufacturers, if the ladies aren't on board, we're not on board. Then over to the HH55, beautifully done. I mean, every surface is covered with a high quality real wood gloss veneer. The berths in the aft, again, not a massive fan of them. They are wall to wall. I've got to crawl in from the bottom. I wish they could find a way to create a nice athwartship similar to, say, Seacat's 54 layout or Windaloo, at least a two-sided layout. It can be done, and of course Kinetic did it in a Performance Cat, and I think it's an important feature. People, they'll tolerate crawling in and out, disturbing their partner, but it's not a favorite thing, and it can be avoided. Looking at the dimensions, this is where you see the ORC as the monster platform of the 4 at 18.39 by 9.4 meters. Next up is going to be, at least lengthwise, will be your Gunboat at 18.29, but certainly not beam-wise. It's only 7.62. The other 2 are very similar in size. You've got your Kinetic at 16.5 by 8.5, and your HH55 at 16.74 by 8.1. Diving into the numbers, as we head across the top line, we've already identified that the ORC 57 is sitting at €1.2 million And the closest other one, of course, Gunboat, I'm not completely sure what the base would have been at time or exactly how to compare a 2018 boat with the 2022, but it was, theoretically around 1.837. Next up would be your Kinetic at 2.1 and your HH at 2.58 or 2.6. As we look down for all the green, you've got the ORC 57 that leads in length at the waterline and beam. At draft, it's the Gunboat that leads with a low boards up draft of 1.22, which is really quite shallow. The next best is going to be the HH 55 at 1.3. Heading down to displacement, again, we've got the ORC well in the lead at 10.8. metric tons. Upwind sail area, the Gunboat leads at 198 square meters. Getting down into the actual engine and capacities, it's the Kinetic who leads the engines at 280 horsepower, which is significantly higher than any of the others. And again, in capacities, Kinetic is in the lead with 1,000 liters for fuel and 1,000 liters of water. The next closest would probably be the Gunboat at 1,100 liters for fuel, but only 379 of water. The others are sort of 400 and 600. But that's really quite interesting. Your Kinetic, obviously built for a very comfortable live-aboard environment with performance in mind. Heading down now into hull materials and some of the performance indicators. In the lead, definitely you've got your HH catamarans. It's hard to overcome the tech that they put in here. So hull and deck structures are 100% carbon fiber composite foam sandwich and use post-cured epoxy resin. Doesn't get much better than that. The Kinetic, very, very similar epoxy vacuum infused full carbon fiber and core cell construction. So Kinetic and HH about the same. The Gunboat, again, very similar epoxy infused. So we've got 3 epoxy and carbon. And then you've got your ORC, which is e-glass, vinyl ester, PVC foam with carbon fiber ribs. But your ORC is the lightest of the bunch. As we head now down into sail area over displacement or an indicator of power, the leader in this is the ORC 57 at 39.77, with the closest one being the Gunboat at 32.33. All of them, of course, well, actually, 3 out of the 4 are factored as extreme racing boats, with the Kinetic being factored as an inshore cruiser racing boat. Displacement to hull length at the waterline. This is an indicator of heaviness. So lightest wind, or the lowest number wins, like Gulf. And the winner, ORC at 54.46, with the closest to it, a fairly distant 72.32, that being the Gunboat. The HH is next at 88.75, and then the Kinetic at 92.82. As we head down into the comfort ratio, it's the Kinetic that leads. And, of course, that has a lot to do with the weight and the dimensions and all that good stuff. But you got 11.09, followed very, very closely by the HH at 11.07. And, surprisingly, the Gunboat at 11.02. The ORC at that weight, with that speed and that power, of course, not wildly focused on the comfort. So 6.49. Hull speed on these as a factor of length, really, it's the ORC and the Gunboat, pretty closely tied, not tied, but ORC is sitting at 10.21 knots and the Gunboat at 10.12. Now, getting into the Kelsall sailing performance, or KSP, which is indicative of speed at 10 knots of wind. You've got the ORC leading at 1.12, which equates to 11.2 knots in 10 knots of wind. The next closest is the Gunboat at 10.1. So if you're looking at this, your percent of wind speed here, you've got the ORC is a greater than wind speed boat at 112%. The Gunboat, greater than wind speed boat at 101%. And then you've got the HH55 at 94% of wind speed and the Kinetic at 81%. Okay, hopping on board. What would Sylvia say? Well, I don't think I even want to repeat what Sylvia would say. This is another one of those boats that if I had a secret boathouse somewhere and gobs of money in an offshore account, this would definitely be there, but it is doubtful that Sylvia would be on board. Anyways, aptly named Hammer, this beautiful, beautiful 57 foot work of art in full carbon is really something to behold. As we step on board, you can see the sheer length of the sugar scoops. As you can see, those clears are the only enclosure at the aft of this boat. That includes salon and it includes the cockpit. There is no full enclosure. You can see the glass as we go up here, but your aft is completely open to the elements. Going across, they've got a fair amount of solar on here. This was pre-Soliban custom fitted solar panels, as they do offer now. But that is quite the carbon boom that we're looking at there. Moving forward, you can see that they've got non-slip up here. They haven't extended that flexi teak they have in the back. You can see the extensive windows. I mean, they're very, very large, and they're glass. There's no grazing, and the front window opens right up so that you can see and feel and the base of the mast, and you can get it. The winches, you see you have got a self-tacking jib option there as well. But look at the sheer magnitude of that longeron and those trampolines. I mean, I was almost scared to get on them. They're so big. You can see all your controls going into the base of the mast there so that you can manage everything from that amazing helm seat, which we'll see just a little later on. I was even just a little scared to walk out on these pontoons. They're just so rounded even on the top. There's nothing flat about them. These are absolute knitting needle thin, and they're to purely cut through the water like a knife. The longeron is quite a thing of beauty. Obviously your chain is all hidden within it, which is my deep preference as opposed to dragging across the gel coat. Interesting to see, even at the age of this boat, the recessed hatches, all flush hatches all the way around. Just having a look back, you can see just the nature of the brow line on that cabin and the sliding window that allows you access from the cockpit, or from the salon / cockpit out onto the front trampolines. You got to be careful getting down those trampolines. It's a heck of a step down. There's the sliding window. You can see it open now so that you can reach out or hop out if need be. Heading down the port side, I was a little surprised to see flexi teak given such a purpose-built boat. Looking at our navel gazing today, we're talking about performance catamarans, and here's that lovely gunboat flying across the ocean at 12 knots, and here's what it's like inside at 12 knots flying across the ocean. This is not exactly comfortable if you're riding across the surface of an ocean at 12, never mind 24 knots. It becomes a question of, is speed safe? Is it worthwhile? And how practical is it? How do you get past it? Well, the way to get past it is rise above. And here we are looking at the solution, foiling cats. You can see how they just lift up and actually fly, but can you apply it practically to a performance cruiser? Well, in just 12 knots of wind, the G4, built by Gunboat, predicted that the 2.4-ton Gunboat G4 should be able to up and fly at speeds of 18 knots. The rake of the G-Force boards, which lift to 2 feet, will be adjustable to suit various modes, non-foiling, foiling assisted, or fully foiling. But they imagined most owners would quickly be talked into going flying. Flying is smoother, quicker, and safer than pressing a powered-up cat planted in the water. Next up, I was surprised, there's a new one. Eagle Class 53. The Eagle Class's multi-stage design process created both a skimming version with the arching C-foils and the EC53 Sport, a fully autonomous foiling version with articulating T-foils. This is meant to be the first luxury sailing foiler on the market, a holy grail of sorts in the sailing industry. The design brief: get there fast without spilling a drink and entertain in style. The secret sauce for any foiler is the flight control system. For most foilers, controlling the articulation of dagger boards and rudder flaps is a mechanical procedure involving manually controlled pulleys and line or hydraulic rams. The EC53 system is autonomous with electric motors, cameras, and a myriad of sensors connected to a computer that controls the foils. Finally, the Persico Cat 72 will be launched in 2024. This catamaran will feature foils of more than 22 feet, 7 meters, that will be fully automated. This flight management system is the best of its kind and is directly developed for the VPP Gunboat optimization software used aboard Team New Zealand's AC-50 and AC-75s. The objective of naval architects Morelli and Melville, in charge of the Persico 72, is to give the catamaran lift 8 inches to 20 centimeters above its usual waterline from 9 knots of wind, and to fly completely from 13 knots of wind. The catamaran could then clearly exceed 20 knots, given that the speed predictions are based on a potential of 26 knots upwind and 14 knots of speed downwind. Okay, back on board. We are now in the cockpit / saloon. And look at that helm chair there. So you can see over here is your galley, and you do have an aft bench seat, but you can see there is no sliding door. There's nothing. The cockpit blends into the salon, sort of the reverse approach to what Bali has done. And as such, everything is open to the elements. So you're not going to be using this boat much up in the Pacific Northwest. You've got your galley system here, your 4-burner cooktop, your stove below. Everything is as it should be. And there is your a nice large sink with a secondary drainage sink. I had a lovely conversation with Barry Haig, who actually was the broker showing this boat, and he brought it up for the show, and he was telling tales of flying past power boats with a hull in the air until they sort of realized that they should probably get it there in one piece and dropped it down. But he said it was fun beyond all comprehension, and you can only imagine looking around this how much fun it would be. Now, here's your steps. You can see slightly to the left there that you can climb up and head out the front window area. All of your necessary winches and jammers are right here within easy reach of your helm chair. It was raining, so the window was shut, but that slides either way so that you can get up and out as needed. And then you've got this glorious, massive sunroof, which actually is on an electronic actuator, very similar to what HH is now offering on the 44. As you can see, everything is within easy reach. Everything looks just extraordinary. Look at this command center here with you. And once you hop up into this chair, it was pretty hard to get me out of it. It was just the sense of control and power, just from sitting there, really is hard to express here. but you felt in complete control. Your position here, you could see everything, everywhere. You did not feel constricted. You were not worried in any way, shape, or form. And the size of these windows is extraordinary. Yeah, but look, they've got that high gloss, beautiful multi-veneer table there. You step now down into the hulls, and they haven't skimped here. You've got a nice cabin sole there. You've got lovely veneers, rounded corners. The doors are elegant. Look at there's your athwartship berth. Now, this is the epitome of a performance catamaran. And yet I've got 3-side access to this berth. I can get out without disturbing my wife, and I can make the bed decently without becoming a gymnast. So somebody tell me why there isn't full three-side access is almost mandatory in every single boat. That is the only way that you're going to get a lot of our wives onto these boats, manufacturers. So let's get on it, shall we? Heading back now into the head, you can see again, there's no lack of luxury or sense of luxury here. Look at that beautiful stainless steel sink, massive overhead hatches bringing in tons of light. There's no hand pump toilet here. It's all proper electric heads. You've got a beautiful sized shower with full access into the forepeak and a nice window on either side. Great ventilation, beautiful countertops. You're really not sacrificing anything in this vessel to go the speeds and have the wow factor that this thing actually does. I mean, you're not sacrificing anything except your bank account. But that being said, you can sacrifice that and not get these speeds. So let's continue heading aft here. And here is your aft berth. Again, beautifully laid out, beautiful veneers, and decent head. Look at the way everything is fared, to what degree it is fared. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's really neat to see that aft window as well there. You've got 2 aft windows, and they really do give a sense of space in here. You did not feel constricted in any way, shape, or form. There is your emergency hatch there, and heading up and over. Of course, these hulls have real doors on them, real doors that shut real tight. They don't give the sense of those latch down, almost destroyer-style watertight compartments that you get on some of the ORCs, but pretty darn good. Here's all your control areas here. Now, this is an extension of your galley. Here's all your fridge and pantry, and very nice. Again, there's that lovely aft window. And again, everything is very nicely done here. So heading forward, I'd like you to look at the way those doors are built as well. Every rounded corner, all beautifully done in real wood and real wood veneers. Again, beautiful athwartship berth. You don't see any sharp corners anywhere that you're going to bump into. Everything is rounded out. Please take note, Fountain Peugeot. And everything has a sense of elegance. Again, you have forepeak access in both hulls. A really beautiful shower again on this side. Everything is absolutely extraordinary in the way it looks and feels when you're on board this boat. All your controls there beside your berth. It's hard to really articulate properly what this thing feels like. Now, I'd like to thank very, very much Barry Haig at Collection Yachts for letting me on board. I also met the folks from Sailing Dauntless when I was on this boat, and there was a lot of sailing stories going around. It was a wonderful time, so thanks, Barry. Okay, pre-owned comparables. What the heck do we compare this to? So first up, I want to remind you we're going at base price plus 50% to get what theoretically the new sail away price might have been, which in this case equates to 3 million US dollars. Our first boat we're looking at is a 2019 Balance 601. That is a 63-foot yacht, and they're looking at 1,700,000. 63-foot yacht. It's only 3 years old, and it doesn't have dagger boards. It has mini keels. It's almost half the price. Of course, I would probably go with the Balance, although cry halfway home. Next up, we have the very intimidating McConaughey MC60, a 60-foot carbon fiber beauty with a controversial design, and they are asking $3.5 million versus the sail away on the Gunboat at $3 million. This is a 2-year-old boat, but the MC60, I mean, if I had that kind of cash, I would pay the extra money for this boat. Moving on next, we're looking at an Outremer 5X. So it's a 60-foot performance cruiser. It's 2020. So 2-year-old boat. They're asking 2.350 versus 3 million. I would do the Outremer 5X because for my purposes, there's just no argument there. Next up, we're looking at something a little different. And if you haven't looked at O Yachts, I strongly suggest you do. O stands for Owner's Yacht. And Dan, the founder of this company, has come up with a very unique design here, a very light format. He can do this in full carbon for you. This one I don't believe is full carbon, but it goes like a scalded cat, and it handles heavy seas beautifully because of its spine construction, which almost makes it look like a trimaran. Anyways, this is a 2020, so it's a 2-year-old boat. It's 64 feet long. They're looking at $2 million versus $3 million for the brand new Gunboat. The problem is the owner who spec'd out this boat went very, very minimalist. So I'm not a real fan of the interior. Having said that, Dan has a platform here that can be customized to anybody's need and is gigantic. So if I was to do my own, then yes, I would go with the O Yacht. Finally, we're looking at a 2018 ice yacht, Cat 61, a 61-foot yacht. They're looking about 1.6 US for a 4-year-old boat versus $3 million for the Gunboat. For my purposes, I'd have to do the Ice Cat. Okay. Monohull heresy. Now, what do you compare this yacht to in monohulls? I mean, I've got a soft spot for oysters, and here's an 015 Oyster 575. They're asking 1.3 million. It's a 7-year-old boat. It's still gorgeous. It'll sail, but literally, your gunboat's going to do circles around it. How do you compare these? I'm sorry. I have a dozen reasons why I'd go with either one. So sorry to sound very political there, but that's the best I can do. Now here's a 2019 RSC 1900, 63-foot yacht. It is aluminum. They're looking for 2.032. This is a 3-year-old boat. I would be hard-pressed not to say yes to this one. That aluminum brings an aspect of global cruising that sort of overcomes the speed aspect. It also has a level of comfort and luxury inside that is second to none. The guys at RSC do a beautiful job. Next up, we're looking at an AML 64. Now, I love the interior finishes of the AMLs. They are the model by which all others are judged, in my opinion. Modern and yet classic. I mean, they're just absolutely gorgeous. The only thing they could do better might be bigger portholes, bigger port lights. This is a 2019, probably one of the last of the 64s. And so it's a 3-year-old boat. They're asking 2.493 versus the $3 million for a new Gunboat 57. For my applications, there'd be no question it would have to be the ML. Although if I was a single man, it'd probably be the Gunboat. Moving then to a Nator Swan 60 FD. 62-foot luxury yacht, 4 years old. They're asking $2 million versus the $3 million on the new Gunboat. I'm afraid I'd go with the Gunboat on this one. So an interesting mixture for us. Okay, let's go to the Dave score. How did she fare? Well, to my surprise, she fared quite well. She scored 65 out of 100. Which, remember, this is a purpose-built speed demon. It has 1 point in life with just a wee bit of luxury to take the edge off, which is probably why it nosed ahead of the ORC 57, because the ORC 57 has nothing to take the edge off. It is just pure hair on fire go. As far as elegance, interior elegance, had to give it a 6 because it does have aspects, although they're quite sparse, and that kind of combination saloon cockpit is a little different. Exterior, give it a 6. I mean, there's nothing but purity to this thing, so you're not going to have fly lounges and faux forward cockpits and things of that nature, but what's there is so pretty. I gave it a 6. Comfort interior, I'll give it a 5. Comfort exterior, this is not supposed to be a comfortable boat. I give it a 5. Quality, give it a 9. I mean, everything was done so beautifully. Performance, you got to give it a 9. It's a wind speed plus boat. Lazy Sailor, give it an 8. Everything came back to that central helm point, and you were just sitting pretty in that monster seat. It was like a lazy boy that went 25 knots. Then the Lazy Sailor, I give it an 8. Everything came back. Everything was easy to operate. Condo, give it a 3. It's not a condo. It's a glorious outdoor patio on the ocean that goes fast. Geek, give it a 9. The Geek is all about this boat. It is a sailing geek's dream. Value for money, I'll give it a 5. Probably should be a little lower, but it depends on what you value. That number could go either way. So 65 out of 100, and what an experience. Thanks again very, very much, Barry. For our Art of the Region pairing today, we're enjoying the work of Richard Texier, a French contemporary artist born on August 20th, 1955, in Tosheng, France. He began his artistic career studying couture in Paris before turning to painting in the late 1970s. He has since become known for his brightly colored abstract paintings and sculptures that merge traditional and contemporary techniques and materials. Texier's work has been exhibited extensively in France and internationally in venues such as the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris, the Palazzo Grassi in Venice, and the Hara Museum of Contemporary Art in Tokyo. He is also known for his collaborations with other artists and cultural figures such as filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard and author Michel Houellebecq. Texier has won numerous awards for his art, including the Prix de Rome in 1980 and the Médaille de Vermeil from the Académie des Beaux-Arts in 2009. Today, his works are held in the collections of major museums around the world, including the Museum of Modern Art in Paris, the Musée d'Art Contemporain de Lyon, and the Peggy Guggenheim Collection in Venice. Well, that's our Waves, Wine, Art, and Ideas for this week. I do hope you've enjoyed it. It was something special for me. I love this Gunboat. Gunboat was the first one I saw when I set foot on the piers at Le Grand Mot, and the impression has sat with me since that time. So I hope you had fun with it as much as I did, and we'll see you back here next week. Cheers.